There's a psychological weapon so dangerous that Buddhist monks hid it for centuries, fearing it could turn ordinary men into something unstoppable. It wasn't a sword technique, it was a method of reprogramming the human mind that made fear powerless. The samurai who mastered it walked into battle already dead, making them the most dangerous warriors on earth. While we're taught to avoid thinking about death, these ancient warriors did the exact opposite. They'd spend days in dark chambers, forcing themselves to experience their own death until something inside them changed. They discovered a glitch in human psychology, a way to short-circuit the fear that controls most people's lives. Right now, you might be paralyzed by fears that can't actually hurt you, fear of judgment, fear of failure. But what if the thing you're running from is the key to your freedom? If you're ready to learn what warriors knew, hit that subscribe button, because there's no going back. There is a mental technique that samurai used before entering mortal combat. A psychological method so powerful that Buddhist monks kept it hidden for centuries, fearing that in the wrong hands it could create monsters. It wasn't ordinary meditation. It wasn't positive visualization. It was something much darker, much deeper, something that touched the most primitive essence of human consciousness. They called it Kokoro, the mind of death. And today you're going to discover why ancient warriors believed that mastering this technique was more important than mastering any sword. What you're about to hear is not taught in modern self-help books. It's not sold in motivational courses. It's a forgotten fragment of ancient warrior psychology, a mental archive that reveals how ordinary men transformed themselves into unstoppable forces of nature, not through physical strength, but through a radical shift in the architecture of their thoughts. In the monasteries of the Japanese mountains, where silence was heavier than the air and the cold cut to the bone, young samurai aspirants went through a brutal psychological ritual. They were taken to dark chambers, alone, and instructed to spend entire days contemplating their own death. Not abstractly, but viscerally, in detail, real. They imagined the blade cutting through their flesh, blood flowing, the final cold taking over their body. Absolute darkness consuming everything. It sounds like mental torture, and in a way it was. But there was a hidden purpose in this, a psychological transformation that modern science is only beginning to understand. What these warriors were doing was reprogramming the most primitive system of the human brain, the amygdala, the center of fear. They weren't trying to eliminate fear. That's impossible. They were training their minds to move through fear, to exist beyond it, to function perfectly even when absolute terror tried to paralyze them. Have you ever felt that moment when fear freezes you? When you know what you need to do, but your body simply won't obey? When the important presentation approaches and your mind panics? When the difficult conversation needs to happen and you feel your stomach twisting? When the crucial decision is in front of you and you freeze, unable to choose? This isn't weakness, it's ancient biology. It's your reptilian brain trying to protect you from a detected danger. But the problem is that this system was designed for lions on the savannah, not for the psychological challenges of modern life. The samurai understood something few understand today. You don't control fear by eliminating it. You control fear by looking directly at it until it loses its power over you. They knew that a warrior who never contemplated his own death would be a slave to the fear of dying. But a warrior who had died 1,000 times in his mind was free. Truly free, because the worst possible scenario no longer had power over him. But here's the darkest secret of this technique, something ancient texts rarely mention explicitly. When you deeply contemplate your own death, when you truly accept your mortality not as a concept but as an inevitable reality, something strange happens in your psyche. The small things that worry you begin to seem absurdly insignificant. Others' opinions lose their venom. The fear of rejection becomes almost comical. The anxieties that kept you awake at night begin to evaporate like mist under the rising sun. Why? Because your brain has recalibrated your threat scale. When you've looked into the final abyss and psychologically survived that encounter, everything else becomes manageable by comparison. The samurai weren't just preparing for physical battle. They were building a mental fortress so solid that no common adversity could penetrate it. This practice forces you to identify what truly matters. In the face of your own end, promotions, social status, and temporary setbacks lose all their weight. What remains are your core values, your deepest relationships, your true purpose. This is the ultimate clarity, a perspective that cuts through the noise of daily life and shows you the path you must walk. Now, I'm not suggesting you lock yourself in a dark room, but you can apply this principle. Take a moment each day, in silence, and seriously consider your own mortality. Don't push the thought away. Let it be there. Acknowledge that your time is finite. Feel the urgency and the freedom that this realization brings. This is not a morbid exercise. It is an exercise in living. By embracing the end, you begin to truly live. You stop postponing your dreams. You say what needs to be said. You act on your convictions. You become the warrior of your own life, not because you are fearless, but because you have found something more important than fear. The samurai discovered that the greatest power is not found in avoiding death, but in using the idea of it to forge an unbreakable will. They understood that the mind that has died is the mind that is truly alive. This is the secret of Kokoro. It's a challenging path, one that requires immense courage, but it's also a path to a kind of freedom that few ever experience. The question is, are you brave enough to walk it? Thank you for watching. If this video gave you a new perspective, consider subscribing for more insights into the powerful wisdom of the past. Have you heard of Ichigo Ichi? It's a Japanese concept, often translated as one time, one meeting. It means that every encounter, every moment, is unique and will never come again. But for the samurai, this idea went much, much deeper. They understood that if you truly accept this moment might be your last, that this breath could be your final one, you stop wasting time, you stop hesitating, you stop seeking approval from others, and you stop living in fear of consequences that mean nothing compared to the ultimate consequence. This isn't about being negative. It's the exact opposite. It's the most intense form of presence and clarity you can imagine. When you truly internalize your own mortality, you become dangerous, but in the best possible way. You become a threat to mediocrity, to comfort zones, and to all the little fears that keep most people trapped in lives they don't truly want. In the West, we're taught to avoid thinking about death. We sanitize it, push it away, and pretend it won't happen to us. We build entire industries around the illusion of immortality, anti-aging creams, life extension fantasies, anything to avoid the one absolute truth of our existence. The samurai did the exact opposite. They embraced death so completely that it became their greatest teacher. There's a famous line in the Hagakure, the book of the samurai, that says the way of the warrior is found in death. It advises that when you must choose between life and death, you should choose death without hesitation. Now, this sounds insane to modern ears, but it's not about recklessness or wanting to die. It's about reaching a psychological state where the fear of death no longer controls your decisions. When you're not afraid to lose everything, you become free to pursue anything. Modern psychology actually has a term for what the samurai were practicing: exposure therapy. By repeatedly confronting a fear in a controlled way, the fear loses its power. But the samurai took this to the absolute extreme. They weren't just imagining spiders or heights. They were confronting the ultimate fear, the one that underlies all others, the fear of ceasing to exist. By making this a daily mental practice, they essentially vaccinated themselves against the paralysis that fear creates. Think about it. If you've already mentally experienced your own death, if you've walked through that darkness and come out the other side in your mind, what could the world possibly throw at you that's worse? A failed business, a broken relationship, public embarrassment. Suddenly these things seem trivial, manageable, and survivable. They lose their hold over you. But there's another layer to this ancient technique. When you regularly contemplate your mortality, you start to develop what psychologists call an internal locus of evaluation. You stop measuring yourself by external standards like wealth, status, or what others think, and start measuring yourself by your own internal code. The samurai code, Bushido, was very clear about this. A warrior's worth wasn't determined by victory or defeat, but by one thing only: did they act with honor in that moment? Did they do what needed to be done, regardless of the outcome? This shift from being outcome-focused to process-focused is one of the most powerful psychological tools you can develop. It literally rewires your brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought, becomes better at overriding your amygdala's panic responses. You build new neural pathways. Studies on contemplative practices show that people who regularly reflect on mortality actually have lower anxiety, make better decisions under pressure, and report greater life satisfaction. They're not depressed, they're liberated. They've seen the end of the story, and it has freed them to write the middle chapters however they want. By facing the inevitable, the samurai didn't learn how to die, they learned how to truly live. And that's a lesson we can all learn from. Thanks for watching. When was the last time you made a major decision based purely on what you wanted, not on what others expected? When did you last pursue something difficult not to impress anyone, but because it aligned with your deepest values? When was the last time you said no to something comfortable because you knew it was untaking you where you needed to go? For most of us, these moments are rare. That's because we're often trapped in a prison of soft fears. The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of being alone, the fear of being different. But none of these fears have any real power except the power you give them. And you give them power because you haven't faced the one fear that makes all others irrelevant. The ancient samurai had a practice called mizagi, which means purification. But it wasn't just about ritual bathing. It was about psychological purification through ordeal. They would stand under freezing waterfalls for hours, not to prove their toughness, but to train their minds to remain calm when their bodies were screaming in distress. They would fast for days, sit in meditation through physical pain, and deliberately expose themselves to extreme discomfort. Why? Because they understood something profound about the human mind. Comfort is the enemy of growth. A mind that cannot endure discomfort cannot achieve anything significant. Every time you choose the easy path, you reinforce the neural pathways of avoidance. Every time you face discomfort and push through, you strengthen the pathways of resilience. Your brain is constantly being shaped by your choices, and most people are unknowingly choosing to become weaker. So let's make this practical for your life right now. You have something you know you need to do. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation. Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off. Maybe it's ending something that's no longer serving you, or beginning something that terrifies you. You know what it is, and you know why you haven't done it. Fear. Fear of the unknown, of failure, of what people will think, of discovering you're not capable. But here's the truth. The samurai understood that fear will never go away by avoiding the thing. It only goes away by walking through it. The longer you wait, the more power it gains over you, shaping your identity into someone who lets fear make their decisions. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. If you knew with absolute certainty that you had exactly 1 year left to live, what would you change about your life right now? What would suddenly seem urgent? What would immediately seem pointless? Who would you call? What would you say? What would you stop tolerating? And what would you start pursuing? Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't know how much time you have. None of us do. The samurai understood this with brutal clarity. Every morning could be your last. Every conversation could be your final words. Every decision could be your last act. When you truly internalize this, not as a morbid obsession but as a simple fact, everything changes. So, I want you to do something right now. Drop your answer in the comments. If you had 1 year left, what's the one thing you would absolutely have to do? Don't overthink it, just write it. Naming it is the first step to actually doing it. And this community is full of people on the same path, walking through their own fears and building their own mental fortresses. The technique the samurai practiced to achieve this mindset had 3 layers. The first layer is contemplation. Every morning, before the sun rose, they would sit in darkness and vividly imagine their own death. Not just the concept, but the experience, the sensation, the acceptance. They would imagine dying in battle, dying in their sleep, dying old, dying young. They explored every possibility until death became familiar, almost boring. This wasn't to be morbid. It was to strip death of its terrifying power, to make it a known quantity. The second layer is acceptance. After contemplation came a mental exercise of complete surrender. They would say to themselves, I am already dead. This wasn't a statement of depression, but of liberation. If you are already dead, what is there to fear? Failure, rejection, embarrassment. These things become insignificant. By accepting the worst possible outcome as a foregone conclusion, you free yourself to act with total courage and conviction in the present moment. You can now live fully, without the constant nagging fear of loss. You are free to take risks, to speak your truth, to pursue your purpose without hesitation. So, ask yourself, what would you do today if you had already accepted your end? What actions would you take? Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, like this video and subscribe for more content on building a stronger mind. See you in the next one. What if I told you that your body is borrowed, and this day is a gift? That everything that happens from this moment on is just extra. This isn't pessimism. It's the ultimate form of gratitude and presence. The ancient samurai had a 3-layer practice to conquer fear. The first layer was acceptance. This body isn't truly mine. The second was gratitude. This day is a gift. The third was action. With death accepted and fear neutralized, they would ask, what would I do if this were my last day? And then they would do exactly that, with no hesitation, no second guessing, and no fear of consequences. This daily practice fundamentally restructured their relationship with fear. You can start this practice tonight. Find a quiet space, maybe sit in darkness, close your eyes, and instead of pushing away thoughts of mortality, invite them in. Imagine your final moment, not with fear, but with curiosity. What will it feel like? Will it be peaceful, painful, quick, slow? It doesn't really matter, because it's coming regardless. Now imagine it's happening right now. This is it, your last breath. What do you feel? Regret, peace, fear, whatever it is, just sit with it. Don't run from it. Breathe into the feeling. Stay with it until it loses its edge. Do this for just 10 minutes. Then, open your eyes and ask yourself, now that I've died in my mind, what do I want to do with this extra time I've been given? What suddenly seems important? And what suddenly seems incredibly stupid? Write it down. This is your real priority list, the one that emerges when you strip away all the noise and face what truly matters. Let's be honest, the modern world has made us mentally soft. We're surrounded by comfort, safety, and endless distractions. Our biggest daily challenge is often choosing what to watch or what to eat. Our ancestors faced death regularly. They buried children, they starved through winters, they fought for survival. And that constant closeness to death gave them something we've lost: clarity. They knew what mattered because they knew how fragile it all was. We've been sheltered from that reality, and that shelter has become a prison. We're afraid of things that can't actually hurt us, paralyzed by scenarios that will never happen, and controlled by the opinions of people who don't even matter. And all of this happens because we've never truly confronted the one thing that would put it all into perspective. The samurai believed that a warrior who accepted death achieved mushin, or no mind. This isn't emptiness in a negative sense. It's freedom from the constant chatter of ego, fear, and self-consciousness. When you're not worried about preserving yourself, protecting your image, or avoiding pain, your mind becomes as clear as still water. You see situations as they actually are, not filtered through fear. You respond appropriately, not reactively. You make decisions based on what's right, not just what's safe. This state, this mushin, is the ultimate goal of the death contemplation practice, and it's accessible to you, right now, if you're willing to walk through the door that everyone else is running from. There's a warrior principle that says, the obstacle is the path, The thing you're avoiding is exactly the thing you need to face. That conversation you're dreading is the one that will set you free. The project that terrifies you is the one that will transform you. The change you're resisting is the change that will save you. But you already know this, don't you? Deep down, beneath all the rationalizations and excuses, you know exactly what you need to do. The samurai would say that knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. Wisdom without action is just sophisticated cowardice. Every day you postpone what needs to be done. You're choosing fear over honor, comfort over growth, and the slow death of regret over the sharp pain of change. Here's what ancient warriors understood that modern self-help often misses. You do on build confidence and then take action. You take action and then build confidence. You don't wait until you're ready. You become ready by beginning. The fear doesn't magically disappear before you start. It fades away as you move through it. Every single person who has ever accomplished something significant felt exactly what you're feeling right now. The difference is they moved anyway. They didn't have some special courage gene. They simply chose to act. They chose growth. What will you choose? Thank you for watching. And if this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more. Think about the people you admire, the ones who've done something truly remarkable. What do they all have in common? It's not that they lack fear. They've all stared down their fears and kept moving forward. They faced the risk of failure, humiliation, and loss. But they decided those were acceptable prices for the chance to do something meaningful. They didn't have some secret technique that eliminated fear. They just understood that the cost of inaction was far higher than the cost of action. They knew that regret is heavier than discipline. They understood that the real tragedy isn't trying and failing. It's dying with your gift still locked inside you. They didn't have special advantages. They had clarity. They knew what mattered and what didn't, and that clarity came from confronting their own mortality. Whether through a near-death experience, deep reflection, or simply deciding that playing it safe was no longer an option. This is the secret of Kokoro, the heart of death, a concept central to the samurai. They didn't practice death meditation to become morbid or depressed. They practiced it to become fully awake. There's a strange side effect to this practice. When you regularly contemplate the end, you start to feel more alive than ever before. Colors seem brighter, food tastes better, conversations feel more meaningful. Simple moments become profound. Why? Because you stop taking your existence for granted. You stop sleepwalking through your days. Every moment becomes precious because you've genuinely internalized how temporary it all is. By embracing death, the samurai became more alive than people who spend their whole lives running from it. When you make peace with death, you make peace with life. They aren't opposites, they're partners. You can't fully live until you fully accept that you will die. You can't be truly present until you accept that presence is temporary. You can't love deeply until you accept that loss is inevitable. And you can't create courageously until you accept that failure is possible. By accepting loss, they were free to pursue everything. By surrendering the outcome, they became unstoppable in their effort. You have access to this same clarity. You just have to be willing to look at what you've been avoiding. So here's your path forward. Tonight, just for 10 minutes, do the contemplation exercise. Face it directly. Then tomorrow morning before the day's noise begins, ask yourself, if this were my last day, what would I do differently? Then, do one thing, just one thing that aligns with that answer. It doesn't have to be huge. Call someone you've been meaning to call. Start the project you've been postponing. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Take one small step toward the person you know you're meant to become. Then do it again the next day and the next. This is how real transformation happens. Not through some massive overnight change, but through daily practice. Through consistently choosing growth over comfort, truth over convenience, and honor over ease. There's an old warrior saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. But there's a part that often gets lost in translation. Each time you stand as a different person. Every time you face fear and survive, you're not the same person who felt that fear. You're stronger, clearer, more capable. The you that exists on the other side of this challenge is someone you haven't met yet, but someone you'll be proud to become. The only way to meet that person is to walk through the fire you're currently avoiding. The samurai knew this. Monks knew this. Every warrior tradition across every culture has understood this same truth. The forge that shapes you is made of the exact heat you're trying to avoid. If you've made it this far into the video, you're different. Most people click away when things get real, when the mirror gets held up too close. They run from the gap between who they are and who they could be. But you're still here. That means something. It means a part of you is ready. Part of you knows that comfortable sleep is no longer an option. Part of you wants to wake up, to live with the intensity and purpose that comes from truly accepting your mortality. That part of you is calling. And this channel, these forgotten techniques, these warrior practices, they're here for people who answer that call. Subscribe if you're ready to go deeper, because this is just the beginning. There are techniques the Spartans used for pain tolerance that modern science can barely explain. The only way forward is through. The only way out is in. The only way to kill fear is to die 1,000 deaths in your mind until death itself becomes just another teacher, another doorway, another step on the path to becoming who you were always meant to be. The technique is yours now. Use it. Begin tonight. And remember, you are already dead. Everything from this moment forward is borrowed time. What will you do with it?